This is Renegade Broadcasting.
Alright, everybody, happy right. Ooh, got a feedback. Okay, went away. Yeah, here we are, the 15th, just about halfway through the month. Unreal. Just a reminder. Well, it is on the website now, I guess, but I'll mention it anyway. Anybody wants to call in the course of the broadcast, the number is 747-222-8807. Again, 747-222-8807. Anyway, we're going through yesterday a list of events that have occurred, on November 22nd down through the centuries. And again, not implying that that means every November 22nd there's going to be some major event. No. But it is interesting, however, to note the multitude of events that have occurred on that date down to the centuries, especially since 1307 there, which has special Masonic significance. The tribe does love to stage events on specific dates. Well, these events that we've been looking at pertain to either some regime change, a king being overthrown, a new regime being ushered in on this date, or some major war breaking out, which usually involves a regime change as well. Very interesting. A very inordinate amount of events have occurred on this date. And, when you realize who the string pullers have been down through the centuries, staging many of these events we're talking about, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to see what's going on here. This is deliberate. I ended off yesterday talking about, Union General O'Howard ordering plunderers shot to death in 1864 on that date. Also, in that same year, on that same date, was the battle at Griswoldville, Georgia, which ended after 650 casualties. In 1899 was the battle at Willow Grange as part of the Boer Wars. 1905, British, Italian, and Russian, as well as French and Hungarian fleets had attacked Lesbos. That's interesting because my grandfather was actually from the island of Lesbos, and they fled Greece about that time to come over here. He was just a baby, at the time. But when I saw this, I'm like, oh, wow, that explains it. Because I remember him telling me his family had come over here to Ellis Island, to escape political turmoil. So that's interesting. Yeah, he was actually from Mytilene, the island of Lesbos, which, of course, is where we get lesbian from. Okay. Wish I was from that island. I'm a lesbian myself. But anyway, 1914 is the next year we come to. Ypres, Belgium, was burned by German bombing. 1918 was when Polish forces attacked the Jewish community of Lemberg. I'm sure in retaliation for crap they were pulling. 1920, yeah, not all of these things were tribal staged, but nevertheless, it's just interesting to note how many things like this have occurred on this date. 1924, England ordered Egyptians out of Sudan. 1930, Elijah Muhammad formed the Nation of Islam in Detroit. That's something I'll have to do a whole show on sometime. The Nation of Islam. Anyway, in 1941, on that date, New Zealand troops conquered Fort Capuzzo in Libya. In that same year, same date, the British cruiser Devonshire sank the German sub Atlantis. 1942, that same date. A couple things happened that same date, 1942. Hitler ordered the Rommel's African Corps to fight to the last man. That same day, same year, General Major Rodin's 26th Panzer Corps had recaptured Ostrov. The following year, 1943, the Royal Air Force began a campaign of air bombing of Berlin. The following year, 1944, Duke of Cornwall's light infantry occupied Hoven at Gillenkirchen. 1950, 79 people died in a train crash in Richmond Hills, New York. Again, not a war, but mass casualty event. 1955, USSR supposedly performed a nuclear test at Semipalatinsk in eastern Kazakhstan. Supposedly. 1967, USSR supposedly performed another nuclear test in the same area. In that same year, same day, UN Security Council passed Resolution 242, stating that Israel must give back occupied land. Yeah, right. I have actually some notes I put together years ago. I mean, way back. I think it was back in my RBN days, long before I was, Jew-wise, although I was aware of, quote, Zionism and was opposed to Israel, but, had no clue of the big scale of the problem. But anyway, I put a set of notes together. I'll have to broadcast that sometime on UN resolutions down through the years against, that illegitimate nation in the Middle East. There's quite a few. There's been quite a few of them over the years. But the propaganda of it all, because the average person that looks at that, the average truther, non-Jew-wise truther looks at that, and many have over the years, and they've thought that, well, at least some good has come out of the UN. Maybe there is some hope for the UN. What a joke, man. They want that for PR purposes. They want that so people won't see it for the tribal conspiracy that the damn thing is. I mean, how you can't know that they created that goddamnable thing? Are you frickin' kidding? Just like, the League of Nations before it and so many other similar enterprises that they've created or attempted to create over the years. Now you go back to the Peace of Westphalia in the wake of the 30 Years' War in the 17th century. They were attempting to create the same thing in wake of a European-wide war. God damn it. Which at that time essentially was a world war. Anyway, that same year, same date, 1967, silver hit a record high of $2.17 per ounce in New York. Not a war, not mass casualties, but an major economic development. We know who stages those. In 1968, November 22nd, U.S. Allegedly performed a nuclear test at the Nevada test site. Notice how many nuclear tests are said to have taken place on this date. Anyway, in 1974, on this date, UN General Assembly recognized Palestine's right to sovereignty. Yeah, all the good that did. But look, that's two events at the hand of the UN pertaining to standing up for Palestine's rights. Yeah, right. For the dupes that like to point to those resolutions by the UN, you have to wonder if you think the UN has any merit at all, you think it's good that they're standing up for Palestinians' rights. Why is it then that nothing ever got done? All they've ever done is just made statements or taken votes in condemnation that might represent sincere desires on the part of, Security Council members to see justice for the Palestinians. Maybe. Or maybe some of them were sincere in that desire. But it doesn't matter. It's just all PR. Nothing got done about it, did it? At the very, very highest levels, they saw to it that nothing ever got done. Yet, when that same Security Council so many other times has voted against other nations, oh yes, the whole world pig-piled on the country in question. Look how many wars have been fought under the banner of the UN. Every goddamn Cold War conflict was fought under the auspice of the UN. 99.9% of which had no legitimacy at all. And not even a hint of legitimacy. In fact, did any of them? How come the UN didn't intervene, have a vote to condemn all those U.S. Cold War conflicts? Never did the UN condemn any of them when, if you look at them under the microscope, my God, they had nothing to do with human rights. It had everything to do with stealing a nation's resources and, installing a puppet, taking out a legitimately elected leader. But in instances where, they should have voted for intervention by the international community, where there should have actually been such a thing in the case of the mistreatment of the Palestinians. When has that ever been done, ladies and gentlemen? It's all rhetoric. That's all it is. The best anybody could say about the UN is that it's a toothless tiger. But of course, as you dig deeper, you discover, oh my God, it's been a fraud from the word go. It's an Obama freaking nation. Trash it. Burn it to the ground. There it is, America, right on your front doorstep. How you tolerate crap like this. But then again, look at all the other crap you tolerated. Long before that bitch was created, you had the frickin' Federal Reserve. Where the hell were you then, America? And where have you been ever since? It's been all downhill ever since 1913. Oh, we had problems before that, yeah. But wow, they really put the noose around our neck then. 1981, again on November 22nd, the USSR allegedly performed yet another nuclear test in the same area of Kazakhstan. I think I said Kazakhstan. Anyway, that's 4 now. 4 nuclear tests, supposedly, on that date. In 1985, 4 years later, was the largest swearing-in ceremony in U.S. history, where 38,648 immigrants became U.S. citizens all at once. Wow. Look at that, guys. Tribe must have been celebrating that day. Wow. Lots of influx of frickin', oh yeah, they love that. Other interesting events that have occurred on November 22nd. Back in 1906, there was the International Radio Telecommunications had officially adopted the SOS as a new call for help. That's interesting that came on that date because, of course, all of these other occurrences we've been looking at pertain to SOS emergency situations, don't they? The order by the Pope in 1307 that called for the arrest and ultimately the execution of the leaders of the Templars. In fact, that was a carte blanche order, not just the leaders, but Templars in general. That was the death knell for a great many Templars. Don't forget, though, the top-notch ones actually wound up getting away. Did shows on that, talking about how they fled to North America, a good many of them. And the evidence of their presence here was overwhelming at that time. But nevertheless, it still was a traumatic event, something that Masons to this day look back at in mourning. It was a day for an SOS call for them. So you think it's by accident that on that date, in 1906, is when they implemented this SOS thing. This all has deep significance. 1954, the Humane Society was formed. In 1969, isolation of a single gene was announced by scientists at Harvard. In 1989, a conjunction occurred between Venus, Mars, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, and the Moon. I remember there was another conjunction similar to that in 4 years earlier, in 1985. I remember my late grandmother was always big on this. My mother's mother. She died, in fact, in 89. Strangely enough, I'll just throw this in there for good measure since I'm talking about that. My mother's mother died on September 10th of 1989. 16 years later to the day, my grandfather died, her husband, on September 10th, 2005. Isn't that bizarre? Very bizarre. The same exact date, 16 years later. He lived to 102. Well, almost. A few more weeks later would have been his 102nd birthday. And you know what, guys? He would have probably lived longer, several years maybe, had it not been for the fact that he had angina. And so he was taking heart medication for it. And so he died from kidney failure because of the angina medication. Jesus Christ. You gotta love that. But, he had his mind up to his dying day. He still could walk. Had a little trouble, but, my God. My brother went to see him that day. He was sitting up having his dinner, and he asked him, "How you doing, Gramps?" And in typical fashion, he was always joking, He said, "How do you feel?" He says, "With my hands, of course." He always had these little zingers, little one-liners. Anyway, But I remember, wow, I really got sidetracked there. I started to tell a story and got so sidetracked I forgot. I remember my grandmother was always into this stuff. I remember she showed me a pamphlet back in the late 70s. She always got stuff in the mail. You know, she was on all these different mailing lists. And she didn't like El Governmente. Oh, boy, if she was alive today to see what's happened. Neither did my father's father like the government. He died when I was in my teens. His wife, I never even met her. She died before I was born. But anyway, he didn't like the government. Oh, he didn't trust that goddamn government any more than I do today. I wish he was around today. Boy, he'd be interesting to talk to. But anyway, my grandmother gave me this pamphlet talking about how the planets were going to be lining up, in 1985. And, it was some Christian nutbag that wrote it. Unfortunately, she was a sucker for that stuff, She used to watch Pat Robertson all the time. And so, she thought, in the late 70s, some terrible thing was going to happen, and that somehow it was going to be a fulfillment of Bible prophecy. They do this stuff all the time. I remember back in 1991, Christian bookstores were loaded with books about Saddam and the Gulf War, and could this be the Antichrist, And so they had all these, just to make a buck, just to sell a book. And the masses always, the gullible Christian masses always fall for that. Even non-Christians, or at least non-practicing Christians, the nominal non-churchgoers love that. They love that stuff. Look how many times, they've set dates, supposedly using the Bible as a guideline, God damn it. Jehovah's Witnesses, Seventh-day Adventists, were big on that. Adventists predicting Jesus' second coming in, 1844, at least the pioneering, William Miller wasn't an Adventist per se, but the Advent movement got started by him, and then the Seventh-day Adventists broke off from that. They picked the torch up where he left off. He had abandoned the whole idea, realizing he was wrong. But no, they ran off with it because of Ellen White's alleged visions. She said, oh, no, you were right about the date, just wrong about the event. Something did happen on that date. It was the second, it was the judgment in heaven, the pre-Advent judgment preceding Christ's second coming. That's what happened. Jehovah's Witnesses did the same thing on several occasions. Charles Russell said 1875 Jesus was going to come. And when that didn't happen, instead of admitting, I was wrong, no, he set a new date, 1914. And when that didn't happen, they did the same thing the Adventist Church did earlier. They said, it wasn't Jesus's literal, visible second coming. He came in a non-visible way. It was a spiritual second coming. Oh, whatever, man. Whatever. And then, because World War I broke out that year, they claim now that was a sign that, something major did happen that year. The Lord had that war break out. I'll tell you who had that war break out. The Carnegies, the Schiffs, the Morgans, goddamn Rothschilds. Yeah, they're the ones that had that war break out. But no, according to Jehovah's Witnesses, God, oh, that's a nice God, isn't it? Has a war break out, just as a sign. God damn, frickin' religion sucks. Can you imagine people falling for that? That this great string puller in the sky that so many are led to think is loving, they can accept that kind of chicanery? A loving God is going to have a massive war stage where multiplied millions and millions of people die. What, so he can frickin' whack off and get himself off on it? Hey, but then again, if you believe that goddamn book, why wouldn't you believe he would do something like that? That whole book is filled with stories like that. Yeah, he loves war. He got off on it. He was commanding wars all the time. Why, if he didn't go to war for him, you were in rebellion. You were evil. Remember I did that show on the, Yahweh's, the list of Yahweh's kills. That is the clear impression in that goddamn book. Commanded war all the time and would have a hissy fit if you didn't go to war when he commanded you. If you didn't kill everybody. He got pissed off at the tribe on numerous occasions and punished them. Let them go into captivity because they didn't kill everybody he told them to kill. Especially the king. If they ever let a king live, oh, what a crockery. Anyway, 1996 is the next date we come to for events occurring on November 22nd. On this date, O.J. Simpson took the stand in the wrongful death lawsuit filed against him for the death of his ex-wife and, of course, Ron Goldman. I have a show coming up on that, guys. Very, very interesting show on that. I won't, give it away right now, but boy, oh boy, have I made some interesting discoveries about that whole fiasco. I'll be getting to that in upcoming weeks. Anyway, on that date, he said the charge was, quote, absolutely not true. November 22nd, 1996. In 2005, Ted Koppel announced his last show as host of Nightline on November 22nd. In 2012, Ted Koppel, the tribe member. Wow, he sure did his good job, his good work over the years, didn't he? With his BS. Just like Mr. Blitzer, I saw him on TV yesterday. That old fart is getting pretty old, and yet he's still around. Another major fraudulent, lying scumbag. I'll never forget in April 2006, somebody had asked him about, his statements that he made on 9/11. He was live there at the Pentagon, and saying how there was no debris. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen that clip. Ladies and gentlemen, it's quite mysterious. As you can see here, there's no indication that a plane, a large commuter airline, crashed into the Pentagon. There's no wing sections, tail sections, engines. All you have here is this small hole. And so now, years later, in April 2006, he threw a tantrum, basically, and he said, that's ridiculous. I was there. I saw all the debris. We took pictures of it. What are you talking about? Denying that he ever said that. Jesus Christ, man. Oh, how Americans don't pay attention. They just don't pay attention. Just like, in early December 2001, mainstream media outlets all over the world reported that bin Laden had died in the mountains of Tora Bora. And then, like 2 weeks later, those same media outlets now are reporting that, a new tape was just released by bin Laden, wherein he confesses to being guilty for 9/11. The same media that had just reported him dead are now reporting new tapes coming out and acting like they never reported that he died. Oh, yeah, he's been alive the whole time. And holy Christ. And nobody catches it. Nobody calls him on it. Nothing. All right, guys. Short break. Be right back.
Hearing a bunch of terrible things about the Jews on this network. But let's take the time to thank the Jews for all of the great works that they've been doing. Politicians, media moguls, bankers, pornographers, comedians, movie stars, directors, and producers, Fed chairmen, and no, I didn't forget about Janet Yellen, she's a dude. Feminists, social justice warriors, communists, and Holocaust milkers. It's been a great year, guys, and this year will be sure to piss you off even more. Thanks, Jews.
Everybody, welcome back. Wow, is it me or did the music just go dead suddenly? It didn't seem like it faded. Maybe just because my big frog mouth was overriding it, but it just seemed like the music's went dead. Anyway, that completes that discussion. We won't belabor that any further, but yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting to point out all those similar events that have occurred on that date. Anyway, let's continue on in this theme with another set of notes here. Put this together quite a while ago. More Masonic overtones regarding the JFK assassination, but in this case, Masonic references in Oliver Stone's 1991 JFK film. This film has been hailed by many as a classic exposure of the Kennedy assassination as having been a high-level government operation, and indeed, it was. But there's some other strange things about this film that need to be noted. And again, even though, oh yeah, it's commendable, it's great, it does do a good job talking about CIA involvement, whatever. But, this is how the tribe works, guys. Stone, of course, is a tribe member. I actually interviewed the guy before. Not on my own show, but, over the years, off and on, I don't do that anymore. But I used to host for a couple different people. This one show I used to guest host for. He invited him on. I just did it as a favor. I really didn't. It just wasn't my gig, Essentially, the guy's sincere and everything, but it's too watered down for my liking, the show that he does. It's not hard-hitting enough. In fact, it's somewhat politically correct. Anyway, and certainly a lot of the guests he has on, I would never interview. One time, I couldn't control myself. One time he had Belzer on, that actor. He's written several books, one on all the strange deaths surrounding the Kennedy assassination, A lot of half-witted truthers love that guy. They support him, think he's great, kid me. What a raging piece of crap he is. What's his first name? Richard, I guess, Richard Belzer. So anyway, when he told me I was going to be interviewing him, I'm like, oh, God, make me gag. So not even 5 minutes into the interview, this was right after Sandy Hook. And so, he brought up the Sandy Hook thing, and so I forget. And I think I asked him, do you think it happened the way we were told? Or do you think there might be something? Oh, no, I think it happened the way we were told. And then he goes off onto the, that's why we need to have more stringent gun control laws. I'm like, oh, yeah, here we go. Well, we spent the next 10 minutes. The guy who ran the show that I was hosting for, in the background is like, crapping himself. Oh, I was landing into him. I got heated. I'm like, I can't believe here you are, professing to be so concerned about government lies and corruptions. And and yet you're touting one of their biggest scams. Of course, he was doing that knowingly. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's a shill monster, ladies and gentlemen, just like goddamn Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky has made a career out of exposing, the lies in the media, the lies of the Cold War, how our government has sucked us into one fraudulent Cold War fiasco after another, lying us into those wars through phony pretexts, through false flag operations, on and on and on. Every one of his books deals with that issue, right? But yet now, when 9/11 comes along, the biggest example of a false flag operation to get us involved in phony wars, amongst other things. And there he is shilling for it. Well, so it is here with Mr. Belzer. He acts like he's on top of government lies and corruption, blah, 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 blah. And yet here he is backing up goddamn Sandy Hook and the official mantra of, the gun grab BS. So, I didn't do too many more sessions for him after that. The audience seemed to enjoy it. I was logged into Pal Talk at the time, and he has a room set up there, where they simulcast the thing in the room. And I was looking at some of the comments. People were loving it. They were eating it up that I was blasting them, but he wasn't too happy about it. You're not supposed to attack the guests, I don't care. Guy begged for it. What a frickin' scam artist. And so now anytime I see one of his new books on the shelf, I always turn it around. Just like any book, when I see, goddamn Hillary or Obama's picture on it, I always turn the goddamn thing around. Can't stand looking at their frickin' ugly faces. Anyway, there's several problems, as I said, with the Oliver Stone film. Well, with Oliver Stone himself, which forces us to wonder if he is really the great advocate of truth that he likes to portray himself as. No doubt, the JFK film is better than a lot of other documentaries and books that have been written, He's gone further than others, but that's how they work, guys. They'll throw some truth out there to reel you in, and therefore you're more likely to fall for BS coming from him than you would the mainstream media, because you think he's a truther. It's quite, unfortunately, a very effective tactic. It's worked quite handsomely down through the years. I mentioned Glenn Beck from Fox News, for example. He's another good instance, good example of how this works. He over the years, I've seen him, talk against the Federal Reserve. Rah, rah, rah. I've seen him talk against our wide open borders. Again, rah, freaking rah. But when it comes to 9/11, those crazy conspiracy nuts. Someone who's supposed to be so awake and exposing, people are so freaking mindless. So mindless. As another example of this, I can remember in 2003, quite a few people now were distancing themselves from Bush when they realized that we were lied to about WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, as being the reason for the war. Quite a few people pulled away from Bush, but still a great many of them, if you mentioned 9/11 being a scam, they would crap themselves. Oh, they would never, our government wouldn't do anything like that. Wait just a minute. You're admitting that the government lied us into that goddamn war in Iraq, which caused far more deaths than what died on 9/11. But you can concede that we were lied into that war, but you can't concede that they would stage something like 9/11, which caused less deaths, and which was used as the pretext to wage that war as well as the Afghan war. Absolutely mind-blowing. You talk about cognitive dissonance. Americans are so goddamn stupid for the most part. They really are. If you can conceive your government lying you into a war, why the hell can't you conceive that they would stage something which they use as a pretext to launch that phony war in the first place, or to put them into the war mindset? My God. When they've been doing this all along. Goddamn Pearl Harbor, goddamn Lusitania, goddamn Gulf of Tonkin incident, then others that they didn't carry out but planned to, like, Operation Northwoods, on and on and on. Jesus Christ. That old saying, there's a sucker born every minute. Oh, in this country, there's 500,000 born every millisecond. God, we've got some of the dumbest frickin' people in this country. Clueless. Anyway, in 2006, probably the best example of Mr. Stone and what a fraud artist he is, he came out with his 9/11 related film, World Trade Center. Remember that? Jesus, I can't believe that was that long. 2006. I remember when that came out. Freaking 10 years ago already. Jesus. Anyway, this, of course, was nothing but a monster piece, as opposed to masterpiece. A monster piece of propaganda. That caters to the government's phony story of what happened on that fateful day. But as it turns out, there are also problems right within the JFK film itself, as I said, which hint at strong Masonic connections, and thus causes this film, to send a double message. Was he really concerned about getting the truth out? Naturally, guys, the little bastard tribe member never mentioned anything about the tribe, never mentioned anything about Kennedy's going after Israel for the Dimona crap, his aversion to their, nuclear test program, whatever, in whatever form it actually existed at that time. Anyway, so let's look at some of these very strange aspects of the JFK film. Hopefully shed some light on the real Oliver Stone and answer the question, is he really an arbiter of truth? Or is he just another frickin' shill? Let's look at some strange inclusions in this film. The first one, a tight close-up of a man's face is shown wearing eyeglasses, who can be seen 3 times during the movie. He appears to wear the same style of eyeglasses as Jim Garrison, the same type of frame. It's a faint, ghostly image. Is it supposed to be Garrison's face? Is it supposed to represent his ghost? It almost looks like an overexposure. Or excuse me, a double exposure, where you can't really do that now, with electronic cameras, but the old, film camera days, they still do make some film. Some photographers still use film, but it's pretty much phased out. I mean, the digital cameras take such better high-resolution pictures. Almost nobody uses them. But anyway, for those of you that remember those old days, you could do that. You could double snap on the same frame so that you got this ghostly image that's how they did a lot of special effects. Anyway, in 3 different parts of the JFK film, and of course it goes by so quick you almost don't catch it unless you go through it freeze-framed. But there are 3 instances where you have this, what looks like a double exposure, this ghostly image, this guy wearing sunglasses. What's the purpose of that? Garrison was still alive when this movie was being made. In fact, he made a cameo appearance in it, playing the part of Chief Justice Earl Warren. So if that is supposed to be Garrison, what is the purpose? Did they give this guy his frickin' cancer and popped him off? Because he died shortly after the film came out. Here's another bizarre instance. The black and white scene that shows Oswald being questioned by an FBI agent after his arrest for fighting with anti-Castro Cubans is the next occurrence of subliminal messages hidden in this film. 1 minute, Oswald is shown sitting in a chair by the FBI agent sitting behind a desk. By going through this scene frame by frame, Oswald is suddenly shown in this same chair, but now facing his questioner. Was this just a bad oversight on their part, or is there some hidden message? Then, instantly, Oswald is next shown standing up and leaning against a wall facing the opposite direction. The subliminal message here appears to be that Oswald can be in more than one place at a time because, of course, there were so many Oswald lookalikes. It doesn't seem like this was done. Stone isn't clumsy. He, and indeed a whole team of other people, always pour over. They do that with any Hollywood film. Not always. I mean, some of them are very clumsy. They just want to get them out to make a fast buck. But no, Stone is very careful, very meticulous. He himself previews his films, and again, also has teams of people doing this, poring over it, looking for any potential glitches, things they overlooked, whatever. No, this was allowed in there on purpose. This, along with the previous subliminal, doesn't seem very sinister, and may not be, but nevertheless, these things are put there for a reason. They must have some symbolic function, especially when we look at all the other strongly Masonic overtoned inclusions in the film. But, even though we can't directly tie that to Masonry, that type of thing, subliminal messages, hidden meanings, that's definitely Masonic. Anyway, the third example, in a later scene, Garrison is shown questioning the homosexual convict Willie O'Keefe. Quite a few homosexuals tied up with the Kennedy thing. David Ferry, for example, a pilot there who helped bring over some of the Cubans that they used, with the Bay of Pigs fiasco. And some believe that, at least one of them might have been used to fire one of the diversion shots, maybe from behind the grassy knoll or something. Sharpshooters trained by the CIA. But Ferry used to, bring them over. He was also involved, by the way, in supplying lab rats, or actually more specifically mice they use, in the University of Louisiana and New Orleans there, when they were doing all the cancer research. Dr. Mary Sherman, remember her? Did a whole show on her a while back. She turned up dead because she was starting to question what was going on. She thought she was researching to find a cure for cancer, and then she discovers, of course, that they were researching to induce cancer. And not only on, individuals that CIA was targeting, but indeed the population as a whole. And of course, you know, a lot of the Kennedy assassination conspirators were involved in that conspiracy as well. So the big cover-up didn't just involve the killing of Kennedy; it also involved these sinister experiments that were going on. Anyway, but David Ferrie was heavily involved in that. When Jim Garrison went to his apartment, you know, he found all these mice cages. And he didn't pursue it, but he did make note of it, that it was very strange. If he had pursued it, he would have found out. He would open up another big, big rat's nest. And, you know, Clay Shaw himself was also involved in that. Anyway, in the flashback homosexual party scenes, there appears a full-screen subliminal skull image, then a rat in a cage, and finally another skull image in the background over Shaw's raised left hand. This is imagery that, again, if you just watch the film, it goes by so quick you wouldn't notice. You got to like freeze frame it. But this stuff is deliberate. Once again, this is not accidental. A rat in a cage. Now, does that have some, you know, symbolic meaning? You know, Kennedy was set up as a rat in a cage. Or is it a reference to Ferrie and his role in the cancer research thing? Who knows? We are dealing with a tribe member here, ladies and gentlemen. A phony tribe member who acts like he's a truther, but gets off on his tribe and all of their crimes. So you can bet there's a sinister meaning behind this. These images can only be seen, once again, by advancing the film slowly, you know, frame by frame. What is the meaning of all this? It obviously has deep occultic significance, perhaps alluding to, you know, Order of Skull and Bones. Who knows? I like to focus on skulls all the time. This would make sense since George Bush Sr., who of course was tied in with the JFK assassination, was freaking 33rd degree, is 33rd degree Mason, as were a great many other people involved in the assassination. But what about the rat in the cage image? Could this be a reference to the fact that these homosexual parties were used as blackmail for the elite who attended them, since being exposed at that time as a homosexual, you know, was extremely scandalous. You know, maybe that was what was going on there. Who knows? They've done it then. They still do it now. They don't use homosexuality. They use other things. Pedophilia. I mean, that's what, you know, Franklin cover-up was all about, guys. To entrap congressmen. Take pictures of them without them being aware, and then later use that as blackmail material. To this day, all intelligence agencies do this. They all operate pedo rings. In any case, these images clearly, once again, are of an occult / Masonic nature, and clearly hint at something rather dark behind the making of this documentary. They love subliminal insertions that most people never catch. And on the occasion when they do, most aren't going to see that there's anything dark or evil about it. Just a curiosity. Maybe even something that snuck in there by accident, they didn't intend to do it. The next example, there's a scene where a man in a dark suit passes 3 hobos being taken into custody by police right there in Dealey Plaza. The man in the dark suit appears to give the 3 hobos a secret Masonic type hand sign. This same thing takes place again later in the film and shows up even more clearly in the still frame. This is all done deliberately. So all the while that Mr. Stone is making it out like, his film was designed to expose, the real perpetrators, it seems as though he's sending a hidden message that, little do you guys know who really was behind it. Obviously, the government was complicit. The government's complicit in so many other things like 9/11. But guys, that's just a diversion, just a distraction. Just like the grassy knollers. The killer was behind the grassy knoll. No doubt there was somebody there. And no doubt they were firing shots. But, guys, that's every bit as much a diversion as the goddamn sniper's nest in the book depository building. Sniper's nest, by the way, where the gun that was found had the sight broken on it. It couldn't even been used anyway. Anything fired from there, who knows? Probably it might have been blanks. By the way, I mentioned yesterday, and I think I got sidetracked and didn't finish the point I was trying to make. I'm of the opinion that there may have been 4 shots fired. One of them perhaps not a live round, a blank, whatever, just the noise effect. But as far as, the thing that hit Conley, as it turns out, nobody, regardless what side of the argument they fall on, nobody really can account for the Conley wounds. A bullet that hit his wrist, ricocheted, and then lodged into his thigh. Nobody can account for that. Nobody. So, that doesn't detract from anybody's theory as to how they think it played out. It doesn't add to it or detract from it because it is a mystery. Where the hell did that bullet come from? Somebody screwed up, I'll tell you that. Somebody must have got yelled at for that. You stupid ass, you could have killed Conley. Our hero. But if it was a 4th shot, there were probably 2 fired simultaneously, and people didn't recognize them as 2 different shots. All right, guys. Short break, right back.
Now, let's hear from a Jewish academic.
My concern is doing away with whiteness. Whiteness is a form of racial oppression. Sure. The suggestion is that it is somehow possible to separate whiteness from oppression, and it is not. There can be no white race without the phenomenon of white supremacy. In the same way, if you abolish racial oppression, you do away with whiteness. Treason to whiteness is loyalty to humanity.
Your views are fairly well received in academia.
Yes, they're legitimate, not to say that everyone agrees, but sure. And the task is to bring this minority together in such a way that it makes it impossible for the legacy of whiteness to continue to reproduce it.
My body started shaking and I can't take no more.
This is Renegade Broadcasting.
Welcome back. I just had a brain fart. I started to talk prematurely before the break had ended. I forgot we were at the halfway point of the show. I got a bad habit of doing that. My mind wandered for a minute. I was off onto some deep thought, and in fact, I just jotted down an idea I have for a future show. And so I got totally distracted and forgot that this was the mid-show break, which is longer than the other two breaks. And so I thought we were coming in, prematurely. I gotta stop doing that. My mind, it's terrible. Sometimes I don't do this anymore, but I used to have a notepad behind my bed, next to my bed on my night table. And, because I would often wake up in the middle of the night, I had to go to the bathroom or something. And then my mind would race, That's when I would get a lot of ideas. It still happens, but I don't keep the notepad there, because if I do, it'll make it too easy for me to wind up staying up and not falling back to sleep and writing ideas down. And there was a time I even carried a notepad with me in my pocket, because I would get ideas and, I got to write that down before I forget it. I stopped doing it because it's like OCD. It's obsessive compulsive. And, when I'm not working on a show, when I'm not actually sitting down at home working on a show, I try to forget about this stuff, because, that happens. And then, you can't live a normal life. But nevertheless, though, it is at those odd times that you get the best ideas. It seems some of my best ideas have come, early in the morning, or at times when you don't have a frickin' pad handy, But anyway, I used to be that way with music too. I still play guitar, not as much as I used to, but I was really into it years ago. I used to love making, I used to have a 4-track recorder. And I used to make these multi-track things, so you sounded like a one-man band, I would do mellow acoustic pieces. I would do, heavy 70s style, Zeppelin style rock pieces, I even had a drum set in the basement years ago. I would go down and lay some rhythm over it. I had a small local band, we used to play, and I would get all these ideas and record them. I'd have them listen. Yeah, let's do that, But anyway, where was I going with that now? Oh, yeah. I got obsessive with that, too. And I would always have these song ideas pop into my head randomly. One day I had a really good idea. And it just, out of nowhere, it just came into my head. I literally had an entire piece from start to finish in my head. The whole thing. I had no idea what the chords were going to be yet. I had to come home and figure them out. But in my head, I heard this song, and I did manage to remember it. I told my ex on the way home, we were at the beach that day, and the whole time, later we're walking around the shops after the beach, went out to eat in a restaurant, and the whole time I'm constantly going over this song in my head so I wouldn't forget it. And on the way home, I asked her not to turn the radio on, because I didn't want any songs to, mess that up. You would forget, if you listen to other music, Now that's going to be in your head, and you're going to forget. I managed to do it. I had the thing in my head the whole day until we got home that night. I stayed up late figuring out the chords, and to this day, I still remember how to play it. I call it the beach song. It's just weird how that works. Just out of nowhere, boom, something drops in your lap. Anyway, but apparently this figure in the suit was designed to represent maybe a CIA official giving orders to his underlings. The three hobos, one of which, unquestionably was E. Howard Hunt. By the way, it just made me think of something else here, which I should really make part of this series as well. Yeah. Oh, okay. I see what I did. Yeah. I recently put some notes together on the death of Dorothy Hunt, which it is tied in with the Kennedy assassination. She's not often listed as one of the mysterious deaths surrounding the Kennedy assassination, but she is. And I'm thinking I should include that as a part of this series, but no, because I covered that in another set of notes that belongs with another series that I'm going to be coming up. So I'm going to be doing in the future. So I won't include that as part of this series. But yeah, that's interesting. The death of E. Howard Hunt's wife. We'll get into that on a future show in another context, though, not with the Kennedy assassination, even though it is tied in with this. And what that's going to be involved with is a series I'm going to be doing on strange deaths that have occurred under several different presidential administrations. LBJ had a lot of people popped off while he was in office. Clinton had a lot of people popped off while he was in office. Georgia Boy, Jr. and Sr., in fact, had a lot of people popped off. Nixon. We'll get into that on a future show. Nixon, unfortunately, is very often praised in the Jew-wise community because of his aversion to the tribe. And yeah, we can look back and cheer that part of Nixon on. He was disgusted with him, but nevertheless, he was a corrupt piece of raging crap himself. I don't know. He didn't need the tribe. He was already friggin' corrupt scoundrel. Anyway, the next example in the film we have in another scene shortly after this one, where you have again this, the CIA figure at Dealey Plaza signaling the hobos. This next scene shows Garrison meeting in his home with some of his staff. In the background is a picture on the wall depicting a white ghost-like figure that appears to be closely monitoring Garrison's every move. Indeed, Garrison was constantly being closely watched. As he describes in his book, On the Trail of the Assassins, his life was endangered on several occasions, and he had mysterious individuals, I should say, visit him on several occasions, trying to buy him off in exchange for his silence. There was another time where he was in a bathroom at some airport in L.A., I guess, and several individuals were just standing to intimidate him, standing outside of his stall. And, they did it, they made it obvious that as soon as you come out, we're going to jump you, So he said very quietly, he stood up as silently as he could, buckled himself up, and then took a deep breath And then, as quick as he could, opened the stall and bolted as quick as he did manage to get past them. He tells of another time where somebody barges into his office. He's like, who the hell are you? What are you doing in here? The guy comes up to his desk, picks up his phone, and says, do you know how fast, with one phone call, I could have you appointed on the Supreme Court bench? All you have to do is drop this investigation. I don't doubt any of that for one moment. He did suffer a lot over this whole thing, folks. His wife left him over it. He became so obsessed with, his research, his digging, that unfortunately it detracted from his family life, his married life. It's pretty sad. On the one hand, you can understand a wife getting frustrated, but at the same time, what he was doing was of monumental importance. It's so sad that very often wives do not stand by their husbands with stuff like this. It's pretty pathetic. There's things, and it's not that he didn't love his wife or his family. It's just that this was such an all-important, it was, he served a very important function. And even though he didn't get any guilty verdicts, the trial still stands as a major milestone in the truth movement, if you will. All the jury members said that they did believe that, there was government involvement. The government was directly involved, as well as in covering the whole assassination plot up, that he did make a very clear case for that. Unfortunately, though, they couldn't give a guilty verdict for Shaw because goddamn judge threw out his key witness, and it just hacked the whole thing up, sabotaged it. Anyway, here's another instance in this film. During another scene showing a carnival parade, an American flag is shown being lowered to expose a huge human skull situated subtly in the background. Here we have another image of a skull in the film, folks. All on purpose. Is this a reference to the, Skull and Bones? Later, a scene is shown where Garrison is questioning Shaw in his DA office. As this scene progresses, more homosexual flashback scenes are shown. And intermingled with these is one very quick black and white clip where an old-fashioned 16-millimeter projector projects a scene of a dark-skinned figure crawling between the legs of a line of playful white men in bathing suits, a homosexual scene. Now, what do you suppose that scene represents? A dark-skinned individual crawling between the legs, supposed to be some homoerotic thing, Who is that supposed to represent? In David Ferry's apartment following his death, in this scene in the movie, there's shown, again, a skull, rats, and religious figures. Well, you can account for the rats. Again, it was actually mice that he was raising. And he was supposed to be this hardcore, fanatical type Catholic. In fact, originally, he went to school to be a priest. That was his original career goal. But as he says in the movie, and it's true, it's true to life, he wanted to be a priest, but he said what prevented him was his uncontrollable homosexual desires. That's what ruined that. Well, it ruined him in a lot of other ways because what he wound up getting involved in, led to his death. Pretty pathetic story, actually. You can almost sympathize for the guy. Anyway, but what we need to really make note of here in this scene, again, is the skull, ladies and gentlemen. What is this, the third, fourth scene now where you have these subliminal skulls appearing? Anyway, the next one, later, Garrison travels to Washington to meet with former intelligence agent Agent X, or Mr. X, which of course represents Colonel Fletcher Prouty, who had, given him a lot of behind-the-scenes information, helped out Garrison in his investigations. Anyway, in this scene, while leaving the Lincoln Memorial, Garrison, played by Kevin Costner, opens an umbrella and raises it over his head. Next, Agent X instantly recognizes Garrison, and their talk begins immediately. In other words, opening the umbrella was the key, the Masonic symbolism there. Passerbys likewise opened their umbrellas, yet there is no sign of it raining whatsoever. There's definitely some Masonic overtones there. In fact, could this be, ladies and gentlemen, a reference? This just came to mind now. Is this a reference to the Rain Man? Remember the umbrella theme popping up over and over in those songs that talk about the Rain Man? I did that show just 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? When I wrote these notes years ago, I wasn't even aware of that. It just came to mind now. That has to be what's going on. So there you go. Definite occultic / Masonic / frickin' Kabbalistic symbology there. It doesn't make sense in the context of the film. Why are they all of a sudden, all of them, opening their umbrellas, especially where it's not even raining at the time? Very interesting indeed. All right. Let's see. Number 10. There's quite a few examples of this in this film. While X gives Garrison a quick lesson in geopolitics and nuclear war. It's an interesting speech in the film, by the way, if you've ever seen it. It is pretty good. With the music in the background, that ominous feeling it gives you, it's like you're getting a behind-the-scenes view of how the government really works, that it is a bunch of corrupt. Yeah, it is. That scene is very good, actually. It's very true to life. Anyway, we got a caller on the line. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi, Charlie. I just wanted to add one reference, and regarding the umbrella, it, of course, harkens back to the Umbrella Man in Dealey Plaza, the Umbrella Man and his assistant who were at the curbside.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
During the assassination. That's all I want to say. Don't want to interrupt you.
Okay, man. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I didn't even think of that one. Sure. All right. Actually, let me... I guess he's gone. I wanted to hang up, but I don't think that option is there to hang up. All right. Anyway, while X gives Garrison a quick lesson in geopolitics and in nuclear war, the Washington Monument in the background takes on the appearance of an ICBM missile ready to take off, complete with a yellow exhaust plume looming around its base. You got to see it to see what I'm talking about. You got to watch the film, but just more, subtle little. Not that there's anything sinister about that, but it's just interesting. All these little subtle connotations in the background, all done deliberately. I actually have the DVD that has bonus Jim Garrison interviews on it, Fletcher Prouty interviews, blah, blah, blah. It's good. It is a good film overall, It's good if you're first trying to wake people up to the government being a fraud. It's just like Alex Jones is good for people you're first trying to wake up. But, after 5 minutes into the thing, then, screw it. Anyway, next comes the second scene of the hobos or tramps in Dallas, which shows the name in the dark, shows the man in the dark suit again, passing by and giving a Masonic hand sign to the hobos once again, this time more clearly than in the previous similar scene. Clearly, it shows him giving, Masonic hand signs. And you can bet, guys, that probably one of the men standing behind RFK, just prior to Sirhan firing his gun into the frickin' ceiling, probably gave a hand sign too. Evidence of him having been MK Ultra is overwhelming. And so that's how it works. It have to be a trigger word. Sometimes it can be, something visual. Simple hand sign can be all that it takes to put you into your altar, your alternate. And now you do your deed, and then later they'll give the counter sign, and you come out of it. You're back to your, quote, normal self, and you have no recollection whatsoever of what took place while you were in your alternate personality. Moments after the Martin Luther King Jr. assassination was announced on TV, Garrison's young daughter in the film talks to a stranger on the telephone who tells her that she's just been entered into a beauty contest. Over her head, in the wall behind her, is a picture containing the ghostly figure shown in the previous scene that I just made reference to a moment ago. It's the same ghostly figure showing up again in the film. Advancing this scene frame by frame reveals that this figure moves his mouth as though he is talking. What's up with that? Shortly after in the film, Garrison talks to his staff about the FBI agent questioning Oswald after his arrest for fighting with anti-Castro Cubans. Next, the scene shifts to black and white again. And again, as the film is advanced slowly, frame by frame, Oswald is first shown seated, then suddenly he's standing, facing the opposite direction. Is this, more Masonic symbolism? Like, the mirror image effect. He's facing one way 1 minute, then the other way the other. Masonry is big on that. They love that. Especially when one mirroring scene is above the other, because now you've got your as above, so below. But the vertical parallelism, left to right, is popular too. That hints at MK Ultra is big on that, which is why they use the Monarch butterfly for their Monarch program. That's where that comes from. It's, symmetry. A butterfly is a reflection one side of the other. Its left side is a mirror image of the right. And that's why you see Monarch butterflies used a lot in music videos with MK Ultra frickin' entertainers. And mirrors show up quite a bit too. The imagery there is, your mirror image of your alternate that is used for, assassinations and whatnot. Anyway. But, just look how many examples we have of this in this film. This is not accidental, once again. Absolutely on purpose. Moments before, wait a minute here. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I didn't skip one. Moments before he sees Robert Kennedy being shot on TV in the film, Garrison makes a sandwich with Wonder Bread. Of course, everyone wonders who killed RFK. Is there some subtle, reference there? Anyway, let's look at the next example here. Or maybe that was just an advertisement for Wonder Bread. Seconds before he is killed, Robert Kennedy is heard saying, "We are a great country and a selfish country and a compassionate country." Selfish? I like when blanket statements like that are made. Well, of course, I make blanket statements myself, that Americans are stupid, but that's true. But are Americans selfish, really? We do have that reputation around the world, but who is it that's selfish, really? Stupid, yes. Selfish, no. There are some who are, but for the most part, guys, the people that have given us that reputation are the swine on Wall Street. Anyway, moments after RFK is assassinated, Garrison goes upstairs and, goes up to have some intimacy with his wife. Is this an occultic reference to violence being connected with, sexual arousal? Maybe not. Maybe maybe that's stretching it. But since there's so many other subtle references in here, I mean, it's very strange that, why show him doing that? Moments after RFK is killed, he decides to go up and, get it on with his wife. As Garrison don't forget, guys, it's a tribe that made this goddamn movie. A tribe member. So why should that surprise us? As Garrison and his team walk up the courthouse steps, a mysterious man with white hair, similar to Clay Shaw, is seen moving behind Garrison's left shoulder. Is this supposed to be Shaw stalking Garrison? During Willie O'Keefe's testimony on the witness stand, the scene flashes to a homosexual scene between O'Keefe and Shaw. Above Shaw's left hand, in the corner of the screen, is the image, once again, of a human skull. What is going on here, ladies and gentlemen, with this human skull imagery? Over and over and over. Viewing this scene frame by frame reveals that this skull opens its jaw in horror and seems like it is about to explode. What could the meaning of this symbolism be? A downward zoom over the judge's desk shows the judge's hand pounding a gavel. Again, very common scene in Masonry where the Grand Master, which, if you ask me, guys, that's where this came from. All of the imagery in the courtroom mirror images what goes on in the Masonic Lodge. The Grand Master usually is dressed in a black robe. He has his little gavel that he bangs down to bring order. Your little black and white checkerboard. There have been courtrooms that have had black and white frickin' checkerboards. When the judge walks in, everybody rises. You're giving homage to this person. It's almost like a form of worship. And isn't the Grand Lodge Master called the Worshipful Master? When he walks in, everybody rises to give homage. It's a worship frickin' ceremony. How mindless people are. Just like you go to a concert, and I've been to a few concerts. I'm I've had my share of bands over the years that I've been a fan of, and but not to worship these people. Jesus Christ, some people get so completely carried away. Would I like an autograph of certain musician, like Jimmy Page? I wouldn't mind getting his autograph one day, but I'm not going to worship the guy. If I meet him, yeah, I'm going to shake his hand. Yeah, it's going to be a cool moment. But am I going to be drooling? You listen to some of these people. It's like, get a grip. When the Pope came, oh my God, the people just thronged around him. The guy is a frickin' murderer, a liar, undoubtedly a goddamn child molester, a freak, scumbag extraordinaire. And people get out. Even if he wasn't, though, let's pretend that he was a very upstanding, decent man. He would have never gotten the position of Pope if he was. But you understand my point. Let's pretend that he was a decent man and worthy of respect. Is it still reason to grovel at his frickin' feet and turn into frickin' jello? Oh, I get so disgusted when I see this crap. It's so ridiculous. Even if these people were decent, get off your knees, you ass. People worship. Another thing that just, ugh. And of course, look what they do with the great Jesus. Once again, a human freaking being like you and I. He crapped like you and I. He farted like you and I. And you can bet on occasion he had his little share of wet dreams too. And people just bow and worship that. Get real, man. Muslims do the same thing with Muhammad. Damn it. Buddhists with Buddha. Oh, they claim not to be a religion, but my God, do they revere the man. Statues of him all over the place. Get a clue. Look at people rallying behind, Alex Jones. People just love to do that. They love to do that. Let me tell you something. Sooner or later, folks, the people like that are going to let people down. Why, if for no other reason, there shouldn't be people worship? Because why set yourself up for a fall like that? I mean, it's nonsensical anyway, aside from that. But just on that basis alone, heroes eventually screw up and do something to disappoint their fans. Jesus has already done that. I pointed that out over and over again. All the crap that he said. Go find those who won't acknowledge me as king and bring them before me and kill them in front of me. What the frig is that? That's someone you want to emulate? You want to frickin' literally worship? Can you imagine? People gather every Sunday morning, in some cases every Saturday morning, to worship a human being that they've been led to believe is God. And yet, again, that book doesn't even teach that. Yeah, you got to. People do it with Kennedy. Was he a good man? Yeah. Does he deserve respect? Yeah. Is it a horrible tragedy that they frickin' killed him, the scumbag, traitorous, treasonous trash? Yeah. But, to grovel at the guy's feet and worship him? No, he was a human being like anybody else. He had his mistakes. He had his flaws. Yeah, of course he did. Anyway, in this JFK movie clip I was just talking about, the scene of the judge's desk, showing the gavel of Masonic symbology there. And, of course, you could argue that wasn't intended to be Masonic. It's just a judge and his gavel. Yeah, but in context with everything else we're looking at, all these other Masonic allusions, Anyway, in this clip, nearby is seen a round ashtray that resembles the Wicker Man of the movie of the same name. The theme of the Wicker Man movie was ritual murder, if you may recall. And you don't get more Masonic than that. JFK's murder, amongst other things, guys, as I pointed out yesterday, does seem to have had Masonic ritualistic overtones. Yeah. You know, the death of the king type, ceremonial type thing. Anyway, Kennedy is shown waving as his car passes through the Dealey Plaza. This scene momentarily flashes to a man wearing sunglasses that are similar, once again, to Garrison's. Next, the image of a four-legged deer-like animal moves across the reflection of the glasses. What's that supposed to mean? And then, just then, a gun fires out in the background. Is there a significance to this? If so, what is it? Why are they showing the sunglasses with the animal running while the shot is being heard? Definite symbology there is what that means. Anyone's guess? Anybody has any ideas? Drop me an email. I'll mention on the show Monday. A doctor is shown putting the remains of Kennedy's brain in a supermarket-style weighing basket. What was the purpose of this scene, if any? Pretty bizarre. You know, in a biblical context, you've got the idea where Yahweh is telling Israel, you know, that he's weighing them in the balance. Yahweh told Nebuchadnezzar, you've been weighed in the balance and have been found wanting or lacking. You know, so is that supposed to be the symbolism here? We weighed you in a balance, Mr. Kennedy. We're weighing your brain, the center of all your thoughts, of everything you stood for, and you've been found lacking, so we're going to kill you. In the story of Daniel, King Nebuchadnezzar, who was weighed in the balance, you know, was overthrown. His kingdom was taken out by the Persians, with help from the tribe, of course. So, you know, if there was any symbolism there, that's, I'm sure, what it meant. In Garrison's final summation before the court, he made this comment. So what really happened that day, he asks. Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we? Suddenly, a man in a black suit and white shirt raises an open umbrella. There's that strange symbolism again, in front of another guy that has Ripley emblazoned on his jacket. Very strange. Is this a reference to Ripley's Believe It or Not, or does it make reference to the character Ripley in the movie Alien? Who knows? In a following scene, a man is shown raising a rifle with a sight on it and aiming it at Kennedy. Suddenly, a close-up shot is shown through the telescopic sight on the gun. Scene is an emotionless face that quickly changes to a face with a wide-eyed, devilish grin. Definite, more definite symbolism going on there. This face then disappears, and light begins to shine from within the sight, and now the sight becomes the lens of a projector. It merges into another scene now. So, you know, what is the meaning of that? After James Cage is nicked by a stray bullet, the scene changes to Clay Shaw holding an umbrella over his head. Umbrella theme popping up constantly. Several frames later, the scene changes to a younger, dark-haired man holding an umbrella over his head. Jeez. It's, you know, it's clear that this sudden change, very abrupt shift in scenes was done deliberate. What's the message there? There's all kinds of hidden messages in this damn thing. Immediately following the shooting scene in Dealey Plaza, Patrolman Joe Smith stops and questions a man. The man presents a Secret Service badge and then moves out of camera range. Then the scene shifts back to the courtroom where Patrolman Smith is testifying on the witness stand. And it has him saying, quote, "Afterward, it didn't ring true, but at the time, we were so pressed for time." The scene immediately shifts to a tall young man wearing a dark suit. He has his left hand up to his ear as if listening to an earphone or an earpiece. This man then turns to the camera and gives a very clear Masonic sign for distress. He holds the palm of the left hand up and crosses it with the right hand palm down. Definite Masonic symbol of distress. This is done several times, in fact, at waist level, with the hands held out about 12 inches from the body. Stone knew there were Masonic tones involved, Masonic overtones involved with Kennedy's death. But yet he never verbalized them. He just subtly includes them in the film. Is he a Mason himself? This is the distress signal for the entered apprentice of first-degree Freemasonry, ladies and gentlemen. And it's done several times. After Garrison delivers his summation to the court, there's another downward zooming shot over the judge's desk. The judge then pounds the gavel. Again, definite Masonic overtones with that. Next to the round ashtray that appears to be a symbol of, again, Wicker Man's face. Once again, we have this not so subtle inference to the ritual murder theme. Very interesting. But there's something else interesting. Oliver Stone, though he claims to be a Protestant, and thus not frickin' Jewish, and Aaron Milchin as his top consultant for the making of his JFK film. Milchin was formerly an Israeli arms dealer, ladies and gentlemen. How do you like that? But, you got to love how the tribe does this. They've done it all through the centuries. They'll claim conversion to Christianity, but in reality, they're just as Jewish as they ever were before. They only do it for, to cloak themselves. In some cases, they did it to save their very lives because, the Inquisition was hunting them down. Whatever. Very rarely, guys, very rarely do you actually have an instance where a Jew literally does convert or literally is not a practicing Jew. That's what they claim, too. I have a Jewish last name, but I'm not a practicing Jew. And I'm not saying there aren't Jews like that, but my God, folks, they are the exception, not the rule. They're pretty rare. Almost every time they're just doing this, to lie about their true nature, who they really are, so they can play their little games, weave their little webs. When I do this series coming up on Lincoln, we're going to see a lot of instances of that. Wow. Along with a whole lot of other very interesting things I didn't know until recently. A book I just finished reading that I got with one of those Christmas gift cards. Thanks again to the listeners that sent those for Amazon. Very interesting book. Very, very interesting. It's written by a Jew. Those are the best kind of books, guys, to get. I'm telling you, you get more revelations from those than you do anything written by a Gentile, because they're giving you a lot of inside info that they have, access to, that they're privy to, that ordinarily Gentiles don't have. They actually go further to reveal their crimes even more than Gentiles do, because they're boasting about it. They're proud of it. This book is written for a Jewish audience. Those are the best books to read, I'm telling you. Amazing stuff in that book that I don't know that I ever would have otherwise stumbled upon. Wait till you see this series coming up. You're going to see Lincoln in a whole new light that you've never seen him before. Anyway, Milchin, in addition to having been an Israeli arms dealer, along with Terry Semel, another Jew, who was the top executive at Warner Brothers, gave Oliver Stone $40 million to make his JFK film. Now, what does that tell you? Right there. How truthful is this film going to be, really? Notice what it doesn't do as well as what it does do. It points a finger at the government. Sure, we know the government was involved. But, guys, it not only does it not mention Israel, but understand this is their game. They don't care that you get upset with your government. In fact, they want you to get upset with your government. They want uprisings. As long as you don't recognize who the string pullers are behind your government. And you certainly don't get that from this film, do you? Why is a former Israeli arms dealer going to give frickin' Oliver Stone $40 million to make a film like this? Unless it's going to be in the interest of the tribe. And it is. And again, just look at all the goddamn Masonic overtones. Anyway, let's see. I got a few more notes there. I'm just making sure it's not stuff I already mentioned. Not only was JFK assassinated on the 33rd parallel and at the site of the first Masonic Lodge in Dallas, but check out these interesting facts. His successor, of course, LBJ, who played a major role in the cover-up, was also a 33rd degree Mason. Of course, I mentioned that in the other set of notes. Sorry for the redundancy. Earl Warren, of course, 33rd degree Mason. So was Arlen Specter behind the, the magic bullet BS. Gerald Ford, 33rd degree Mason. Or actually, I think he was 32nd degree. Whatever, man. High-ranking Mason. J. Edgar Hoover. George Bush Sr. Some of you might recall the show I did years ago in the series I did on JFK 5 years ago this month, in fact, wherein I talked about George Bush Sr.'s involvement in that. Oh, big time. Heavily involved in that. Alan Dulles, another 33rd degree Mason. On and on it goes. Anyways, that completes that set of notes. We only got a few more minutes left. I hate to start, especially with the weekend coming up. I hate to start another set of notes and then leave you hanging till Monday. I did find the set of notes on Hale Boggs. So since I'm talking about Kennedy, I'm going to start that show up fresh on Monday. We'll talk about his strange disappearance. Obvious frickin' murder. Again, the only Warren Commission member who not only wasn't a Mason, but he was actually starting to question what was going on with the commission. He realized it was a frickin' sham. Just like that McClellan character who stepped down from the 9/11 Commission for the same reason. He started realizing that something's not right here. And then I'm going to follow it up with something I've been talking about for years, intending to cover, and I never did, the RFK assassination, intimately connected with his brother's death. And then I'm going to follow it up with another show, something I've covered in the past, but there's a lot more new material that I've added to these notes. And it clinches the case, absolutely clinches the case as to who the trigger puller was. No freaking question about it. My God, the evidence is absolutely undeniable. So you don't want to miss that. It probably won't be till maybe Wednesday or Thursday that I get to that. But this is the final word on the JFK assassination as far as who pulled the trigger. Absolutely. My God, folks, once you see it, you're going to marvel that you never saw it before, and indeed that so many millions of people have never seen it before. People who have, written books about it, done documentary, of course, some of them, of course, freaking shills anyway. But, I'm talking about sincere people really desiring to want to get to the bottom of this, have pored over that film hundreds of times, maybe thousands, and yet never noticed it. This will show how, limited our faculties are as human beings, where we can see something so blatantly in our goddamn face and yet never recognize it for what it is. It's amazing. And yet it's pathetic how the mind works. They know this guys will take full advantage of it, which is why all too often they hide things in plain sight. Yeah, right in front of your eyes. They love to do that. It makes their crimes all the more thrilling, all the more fun when they can do stuff right in your face and you don't see it. Just like all these subtle inclusions in the JFK film, right there, right in your face, but almost nobody catches on. Like in the Batman film, having the reference to Sandy Hook months before the Sandy Hook shootings. Nobody catches it because it goes by very quick, and people aren't looking for that stuff anyway. Just like the movie, Independence Day. Terrorists are looking at the countdown clock on their laptop screen, and for a split second, the camera pans up across the screen, and sure enough, the countdown clock reads 9 hours, 11 minutes, and 01 seconds. If it just said 9/11, that would be, cause for concern. That would be strange enough. But guys, to have it read 9/11/01, that movie came out in 1996, 5 years before 9/11, and there they are showing 9/11/01. Do you know what the chances are of having 9/11/01? It's like winning the goddamn lottery. It's millions to one. That is not accidental. Look how many times they do this stuff, how they toy with your mind. Put this stuff out there right in your face. So when it comes to the Kennedy assassination and who did it, guys, it's been there all along. It's right in the Zapruder film. We're going to take a very close look at the Zapruder film. Some of these pieces of evidence, you have to freeze frame it. You've got to go through it frame by frame to see some of these key pieces of evidence. We're going to be talking about that next week. And I tell you, my God, when you do that, when you look at the freeze frames, did you know the Zapruder film caught the exiting bullet? It did. The exiting bullet is the smoking gun, pardon the pun. It's been there all along. And that bullet being shown exiting Kennedy's head exits at such an angle, there can be no doubt who the shooter is. It's over. It's over right there. It's a done deal. That taken with all the other evidence too, but right there, when you see the path of the bullet recorded by that camera, it's over. That bullet could not have come from the school book depository. It could not have come from the grassy knoll. There's only one other place it possibly could have come from. We're going to clinch the case, rip the lid off this goddamn thing once and for all next week. All right, guys. Actually, we've got a couple more minutes. I don't know if anybody wanted to call in the last couple of minutes, if you had any more comments or whatever before we end the show. Or else I'll just ramble for 5 minutes. Like I said, I don't want to start another topic now and have a cliffhanger like that. Got some great stuff coming up, though. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Like I said, this Lincoln thing, holy crap. Wow, wow, wow. Where do you see what I got coming up? one of these sets of notes is going to be at least 40 pages long. I'm almost done putting them together. I'm done with the book. And I'm almost done putting the notes together. I'm probably going to have a couple. I think I'm on page 37 right now. So I'm probably going to be over 40 pages by the time I'm done. I can't believe. Holy crap. I had no idea. I mean, I already did a show on him years ago, exposing him as a power-hungry, tyrannical bastard, trashing the Constitution. But I had no idea. Holy Jesus, man. The only thing missing is the yarmulke. He didn't wear a yarmulke. But other than that, my God. He was a Jew, if ever there was one, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely, no question about it. Not just by his lineage, but where do you see how he conducted himself in private, things he did, things he said? It's just jaw-dropping. So you don't want to miss that. I'll probably get into that following the Kennedy series. Then I got another series on, all the deaths around all these presidents, particularly, Nixon, LBJ, Clinton, both Bushes. Wow. Oh, the stuff that most Americans don't know and don't want to know. Ignorance is one thing, but when you got willful ignorance, when you got people that don't want to know the truth, I have no patience for those kind of people. But anyways, so all right, guys, do have a good weekend. We got probably less than a minute to go here. By the time we meet again on Monday, we're going to be into the second half of January already. I can't believe it. What is the frickin' time go? Jeez, man. Sure flies. I'm trying to think. Something interesting I saw in the news this morning I wanted to make reference to now. What the hell was it? I know one of the things they showed a bizarre storm system forming out in the Atlantic. It looks like a hurricane. And even the headline read, "Unusual rare storm system emerging." Unusual? It's unheard of. Unusual. When the hell have you ever heard of a tropical storm developing in January, ladies and gentlemen? This has got to be an example of their little high-tech weather modification toys at work. Absolutely unusual. They say that to give the impression that, oh yeah, we know about this. It's just like El Nino. Yeah, this is El Nino. When have you ever heard that word before? Never. They frickin' made it up just a few years back, back in the late 90s or whatever. Try to find reference to that word anywhere prior to the late 90s. El Nino and El Nina, they try to give the impression that it's something they've known about. It happens periodically. Oh, what a bunch of BS. What does happen is, the Earth goes through, over a period of many centuries, sometimes millennia, the Earth does go through cycles. There have been many instances of mini ice ages, for example. There was one back in the Dark Ages we know of. There was one in the 6th century. There was another one in the 5th century BC. They do appear to occur periodically, probably related to, changes in solar activity, whatever, But this idea of El Nino and El Nino, no. Guys, that's their way to try to explain away their frickin' weather tampering is what they're doing. Since 1994, the completion of the creation of the frickin' the HARP facility, we've seen massive increases in devastating weather patterns. Definitely associated with all right, something's definitely wrong now. I'm not getting any music. Something's wrong. I don't even know if I'm still being heard. Well, if I am, guys. Oh, now I see a note. I didn't notice this before. Sean's computer had dropped Oh, great. Oh, I guess I was still being heard, but looks like I'm off the air now. Oh, okay, good. I was getting recorded. Yeah, I noticed Sean did drop. Well, I don't think I'm being heard over the air, but hey, have a good weekend, Kyle. We'll catch you later. That's weird. I wonder how that happened.